Hey SmartPak fans, welcome back to another episode of Ask the Vet. I'm SmartPaker Sarah, and she of course is Dr. Lydia Gray, here to answer all, or at least your most popular horse health questions. That's right. And so if you've seen our voting video, or our questions video, we're looking for questions for next month, and that video looked a little bit different because in your place was my good friend Dan from SmartPak's Customer Care team, our good friend Dan. And so Dan will be in my seat for next month's video because I will most likely be out on maternity leave, which is very exciting. So you guys are going to have a blast without me, and I will look forward to watching it and hopefully using it to make the baby fall asleep. And so I will of course be back after that, and I look forward to seeing you guys and hearing all the awesome questions you ask in the meantime. Without further ado, I'd love to jump into the questions because we have 5 first-time winners this time around. So I always love when we get more people involved in the fun, more people get to get a little SmartPak gift card action. And our first question was asked by Riley, who asked it on smartpak.com/askthevetquestions, which is our handy-dandy form that makes them very easy to submit. Right. And Riley is wondering about tips to build your horse's top line, and how long does it take for a horse to build a good top line? Are there specific exercises that would help? Can supplements or different types of feed help too? So a multi-part question for you.
And all the multi-questions in that question were great, so you'll help me remember them. But so the top line, I like to start everyone on the same page. So the top line is the top of the horse's body from the neck to the tail. So it really is a good word to describe it. It's the top line of the horse. And we're talking about muscle. So she?
Riley?
Oh.
Could be either. We don't know.
They are most likely worried about the horse's muscle has gone away. And they don't say if it's a senior horse or not, because it tends to be very common in senior horses. As you age, the muscle just goes away. So the approach sounds right. They're thinking already diet and exercise. It turns out that the research says diet might be the more important factor because even if you're feeding the horse a complete and balanced diet, if you're exercising almost too much, the top line can go away. So what's really important is to get those key amino acids in there, and by key, I mean lysine, which was the first limiting amino acid, and methionine and threonine. In fact, one of my favorite studies, and I have so many, I call them each favorite, but one of my favorites
because they don't know about each other.
That's right,
that's
right.
You don't tell them.
Is by Graham Tears, and they set out to show that if you feed older horses lysine and threonine, their top line improves. What they found was, because they used as a control group young horses. And when they fed them, though, the amino acids, all of the horses, every age group, their top line improved. So what it says is, by feeding key amino acids, we can improve the top line in horses. So the way you do this is, especially if you have grass hay is not really known for being high protein. Alfalfa has more. So, but if you're feeding grass hay, you probably need to supplement. Now, you'll need to be giving a multivitamin or a ration balancer that has protein. Could be a fortified grain. Could be a protein supplement itself on its own. And those tend to have, and I think we have some here. Like here's one that's very popular. It's Triamino because it has the 3 amino acids I mentioned: lysine, methionine, and threonine. So you can feed that right with whatever hay and grain or ration balancer you're giving it to supplement the protein that is already in their diet. I think one of the questions was how long it takes. We know that it takes at least 2 weeks to see a weight gain in a horse, but that's more fat, and we're talking specifically muscle.
I wish it took me 2 weeks.
Oh God,
to see a weight gain.
I would say at least a month. Now the study I was referring to was a 14-week study, so even over 3 months. So give it time. And as far as exercises, I mentioned earlier that diet is more important than exercise, but exercise is still important. So the recommendations that are good for building a horse's top line is, we have an article coming out soon, on kissing spines. And so the recommendations for those horses, which is long and low, exercises that lift the back, lower the neck. So bring up the horse's top line like a suspension bridge. Am I using that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there's a PSOA system or any kind of system like that that encourages them to use their body correctly. Cavaletti, we always recommend heel work. Transitions, now we're getting into discipline specific. So whether you're Western or English or jumping or dressage, it can be sets, like intervals, you know, like I just did a driving thing where we did 5 minutes of walk and 5 minutes of trot. Transitions are good, lateral work, so, but in your discipline. So in your sport, find those things that are going to ask your horse to use and develop his muscles. Have the supplement or the good feed in place, and I think you'll be good to go. And then just give it time.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great question.
It was.
Our second question was submitted by Jody on the SmartPak blog. So we're getting a little tour of where you can submit your questions. And Jody's wondering, my 22-year-old gelding has recently been diagnosed with cataracts. He's still able to see seemingly fine, no issues with riding him or getting him around in his field. Are cataracts common with senior horses, and what things do I need to take into consideration as he gets older, e.g. safety while riding, turnout? Oh, and then she says, thank you for the fun and educational videos.
Thank you. We always appreciate those, yeah. So 22-year-old, okay, so he would be a senior. There is a trend in the older horse to develop cataracts. It's simply everything wears and tears. You know, our bodies just wear out, and the lens in the eye, which is where the cataract exists, after a lifetime of inflammatory bouts, for whatever reason, it just develops some opacity or cloudiness. Now, this isn't the cloudiness that you see on the very outside of the eye or the cornea. That's completely different. This is cloudiness on the inside of the eye, and you'll notice it as light can't get through. Like you can't see, their retinas don't reflect anymore. You know how you can shine a light in the dark and all your cats will light up? So
how many cats do you have?
So it's definitely a structure inside the eye. There's a syndrome of foals can get cataracts. So when the vet comes out, to do the foal check.
But that's really cute, though. They're just small eyes. They're so cute.
Oh no, but you have to do surgery.
Well, it's very sad, of course.
Oh, sad but cute.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Everything about foals is cute.
So, but in older horses too, we have the age. There are some inherited causes for cataracts, and she doesn't mention what breed her horse is, right?
She does not.
Yeah. So we know Appaloosas tend to get the moon blindness or the equine recurrent uveitis, but there's some inherited risk factors for cataracts in thoroughbreds, in Belgians. Rocky Mountain horses in particular have a syndrome. So trauma also can lead to, but it's the repeated bouts of inflammation that are the cause. And so how do you notice it? You see it, but also you notice that your horse bumps into things. That's probably what she noticed. Doesn't walk as confident, may even start shying or spooking or jumping at things that they didn't used to. So for her, I mean, safety, it probably was the first thing that everyone thought of, is sometimes they tell you when they're not confident enough to be ridden anymore, you know? And then you have to listen to them. But many organizations allow a horse with blindness in one and sometimes both eyes to continue to compete. So it really depends on the horse. Some of them, because it is gradual, tend to go into this stage of their life quite nicely because they get used to it. You know, if it comes on more acutely or suddenly, it's more shocking and they didn't have time to get used to it. Advice for her is try not to change the environment because they've learned the environment with their sight. And so when their sight goes away, if the environment stays the same, they can manage it, right? Sometimes having a buddy horse that they can rely on is really helpful because they kind of follow them around and they know what to do based on what their buddy is doing.
And it feels like now that he still has his vision is a good time to introduce that buddy if he doesn't have one. So that once he does eventually, if he loses his vision, he has a friend he can rely on.
And this may seem odd, but the other thing I would do for these guys, because they kind of don't know where they are, maybe keep him in a fly mask for protection, you know? So he's gonna bump himself on stuff. So put some protection on him so he at least protects his face from stuff. So, but yeah, surgery is really the only option. There's no medicine. There's no supplement.
Chemotherapy.
Yeah,
like
and
that,
this was the very first surgery I did in vet school.
Wow.
Yeah, my first day of senior year. It's a really cool surgery. It's the same one they do in humans, where they make a slit. It's awesome, but only Google this if you can tolerate.
So I like that
pictures.
you called this awesome, but then it was weird when I said foals were cute.
Right.
Okay.
Surgery awesome, foals. Yeah. But they just make a slit in the cornea. They stick a little tiny, like ultrasound probe in there. Make some, tiny.
Okay.
Make some high frequency vibrations. Break up the lens. The lens is like glass, and then suck it out. Sew up the hole, and you're good to go.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's called, I should say what it's called, phacoemulsification.
Ooh.
I know, I was
a good
dying
one.
to say that, yeah. So.
That was a good one.
But I think she'll be fine. Totally fine.
Terrific. Well, good luck, Jody, and thank you for the wonderful compliment. Question number 3, submitted by Harley on the Ask the Vet form. I like how Harley starts. Let's talk grazing muzzles. Why would you need a grazing muzzle on your horse? Also, my horse routinely gets sores and rubs from her muzzle. Is it well fitted? Oh, it is well fitted, but I find in wet conditions it still rubs. Any tips or tricks to prevent this? Thank you so much.
All right.
You came to the right place.
Oh my goodness, I've been dealing with muzzles for years, so I
feel like Newman's been dealing with muzzles.
Well, both of us, because fitting a muzzle can be exasperating.
Taking a muzzle off can be very fun for Newman.
Fulfilling, yeah. He excels at that. I mean, my job is to fit it, and then his job is to unfit it. So first we'll go through why do you put a muzzle on.
Yep.
You have those horses that are easy keepers, and so you might use a muzzle just to restrict their intake, their caloric intake. Some horses specifically can't have sugar, and there I'm thinking the Cushing's horses, the equine metabolic syndrome, PSSM, laminitis. There you might only have to muzzle in the spring and the fall when the grass is particularly risky. And for some horses that don't have an underlying health condition, maybe just that transition period in the spring, muzzle while the grass is growing fast and you really haven't had a chance to get them adjusted, transitioned into the grazing. So you could just for a month or so use it. But mine wears a muzzle from like April to October, pretty much all day, like maybe 10 hours. So it's got to fit well, and I feel your pain on the fitting. What I do, I get a new one, and you have some choices. There are what I call onesies. They're
This is feeling very relatable for me.
Yep. They're the muzzle and the strap that holds it on all together, like in one piece, right? And then there's the muzzle separate, and then you buy a quick release halter that fits on it. And so and then there's a variety of options of muzzles. There's the easy breathe, there's the soft ones, there's harder ones, there's all sorts of ones. And I've gone through probably 20 muzzles. Wow. Yeah, because it's all about the fit, the comfort, what they'll tolerate. Some they tolerate more than others, and you kind of have to experiment. And then you can have like a muzzle swap with your friends. You know, like this, I tried this one.
Do you belong to any like weird Facebook groups?
Maybe. But if one doesn't work for you, you bring it to your muzzle swap, and then it's perfect for somebody else, and so it's nice because it's a lot of money. But so you put it on, and the instructions say exactly how to fit it. And typically it's like you want the bottom of the muzzle to be an inch from their mouth, so they have a little room. And then I leave it on for about a week, and then I can see where it's rubbing. Then I take a variety of fleeces. Now this one is the Miracle Color fleece cover, and you ask yourself, why did she take this one? That's not for that. But
seems quite specific.
It's got this really big, I'm not pointing well, really big chunk here. I don't actually know where it goes on the bottom here, but I use this on the bottom of the muzzle here.
On the shin groove.
Yeah, and that keeps it, because their jaws moving all the time as they eat. And so that's a common rub spot. For the rub spots along the cheek pieces, then you have this piece. You can also just buy a halter, a fleece set, which is what this is. And so the nice thing is they're all Velcro. And so you can easily pull the Velcro apart. I know, I can hear it, it's just not coming.
Yeah.
But you can put them on the cheek pieces. Where else do they rub? Sometimes on the top.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I've found, I have a lot of experience with this, you came to the right person, is that moleskin. You know what moleskin is? Okay.
Of course.
I just
My
go,
sisters are ballerinas. I'm very familiar.
Perfect. Okay. So I just go to the pharmacy and get their heavy duty moleskin. And then when I see where he's got rubs, then I moleskin that area. And I kind of like moleskin better because it's thinner. And if you put this on like the crown, sometimes they go foink. It makes it really easy to get off. It's fine on the cheek piece, but I moleskin the crown. Yeah, so I all kinds of fleece, moleskin, but you gotta he's gotta wear it for about a week to figure out where it rubs. So, yeah.
I told you came to the right place.
Oh my gosh, I could go on forever, but.
Question number 4 is submitted by Kat Jenk on YouTube, and they are wondering, can you do a video on suspensory ligament injuries, please?
Okay, so I think, did we do bow tendons last time?
I don't know if it was last time, but we've definitely talked about them.
Yeah, so they're related because they're both soft tissue, connective tissue. The tendons are the structures that connect muscles to bones, and the ligaments connect bones to bones. So they're related. When we're talking about the suspensory ligament, easy for me to say, in particular, we'll talk about the location first. So it's on the leg between the knee and the ankle, or the hock and the ankle, so lower limbs of all 4 legs. And it's the tissue that butts right up against the cannon bone, so if the horse is facing this way. So it's from the outside, you have your skin, your superficial digital flexor tendon, your deep digital flexor tendon, and then the suspensory. What that means is it's not as easy, especially on the hind limb, to image. So our imaging choices are, X-rays, ultrasound is good, but not as good as with tendons. They're looking now at maybe MRI is the best way to categorize the original injury and then follow the progression. And you can now do standing MRIs with just sedation and not need general anesthesia. So that's kind of why they're thinking maybe this imaging tool is now becoming appropriate for this. I was going to say I have good news and bad news. Well, the good news is that if you catch this early and get right on it with some modern medical management treatment, the forelimb suspensories, they take longer than tendons, because last time, remember, we did the number of letters in the word. So bone was 4, tendon was 6, and ligaments, 8?
Yep.
So they can take 9 months to a year to heal, but if it's an acute front limb suspensory, you've got a chance. I'm going to read something. Acute hind limb proximal suspensory desmitis is much worse. 13% were sound and in full work at 6 months. And the prognosis for the chronic hind limb cases approaches 0%. Now, don't give up all hope, but do involve your vet right away. They're challenging. The cardinal signs of inflammation, or the signs of this kind of lameness, are heat, swelling, and pain, except that with the suspensory being so deep, you always don't get that swelling. So you can't depend on the limb being big and swollen as like, oh, got to call the vet. Sometimes the only clinical sign is the horse isn't performing as well as he used to. One of the risk factors for a pulled suspensory is advanced dressage training. So if you have a horse that does a lengthened or medium or extended trot, and then they can't or they don't want to, that should make you think that maybe I should have the vet out. And so it can be as subtle as that, and you have to get on it to give your horse the best chance of recovering from it. I will say, Newman had a pulled suspensory back when he was 5. Yeah, and that was what I saw. Yeah, and he's 17 now, and he has not only returned to full work the same level, but went up. So I got right on it and managed it appropriately, and did everything my vet said, and he's back to working. So there is hope. And his was front limbs, so I had a better chance. The hind limbs are, boy, they're tough. They're really tough. So I hope this person does not have one, their horse. But
Yeah. I mean, it was just a request for a video, so we don't know.
True. We don't know.
So hopefully we addressed all the questions that you had. Last but not least, we have question number 5. But before we jump into this question, it is another senior horse question, which I felt like we had a couple of senior-related
the cataract
things.
horse was 22.
The cataracts, and then also the top line being harder when you
Could
get older.
have been, yeah.
And so we have a senior horse question. But of course, you being SmartPak's very famous staff veterinarian and medical director, you get Ask the Vet questions in person.
I do.
Every now and then. And one such question came up recently, as I understand it, from a good friend of yours, and apparently a big fan of mine. So I just want to give a shout out to Mike and his horse Sugar and say thanks for watching. And of course, thanks for asking the vet. And without further ado, we'll get to Sutton M's question from YouTube. I have an elderly horse who I love so much, and I was wondering how I can make life for him a bit more comfortable as he ages. He is a 28, with a question mark, year-old appendix quarter horse. He is retired. He gets turned out into an indoor arena every night with other horses, and he's in his stall from maybe 9 until 3. We often have young lesson kids work with him. No riding, of course, but he gets hand-walked pretty much every day, just a few laps around the property, and we groom and bathe him often with the kids. He is quite skinny and is a sad sight. We feed him twice as much hay as the other horses, and he gets grain once a day and an assortment of supplements. Still can't seem to put weight on. Any tips on fattening him up and making his life a little better would help so much.
Life already sounds pretty good, but we'll try.
It's very wonderful. This is very sweet.
Assortment of supplements is an interesting way of phrasing it.
That's how I would describe my SmartPak. It's an assortment.
So when I look at a situation like this, the first thing I want to make sure they're doing is working with their vet. So get the complete physical exam. Make sure there's no underlying health condition. A horse this age, 28,
she thinks.
Could have Cushing's, could have a variety of things that they're unhealthy enough to make them a little bit run down or make them into that hard keeper. And so if you bring their health status up a notch, maybe they'll put on weight better, or they're extract the nutrition out of their food that they should be.
Even things you might not expect, like teeth problems.
Could be teeth,
very
could be
common.
Parasites,
Yeah.
Could be simple things, could be hard things, but get the vet out.
Yes.
When the vet is out, have them show you, if you don't already know how, to do a body condition score and to assess the weight or in some way measure the weight of your horse. Can be a tape. And then record those in a journal so that now you have an objective measurement of your horse's health.
Is this getting better? Is this getting worse? Rather than just, ooh, I wish you'd gain weight.
Right, because we're going to give you some things to do, and if you're not following them, I did A, and is he better or worse, then you don't know if you should continue that or try something else. And the thing I always tell people is, try one thing at a time. Because if you throw...
hard to resist.
I know it is, because you want them to get better right now. But if you throw the kitchen sink at them and then the horse get better, you're like, uh-oh, what was it? Now I have to do everything. Now you're taking out one thing at a time. So they said the horse gets hay in front of him all the time.
It says, twice as much as, well, they said twice as much as the other horses. So that is a good point.
Okay. So when I have a thin horse, I like to keep food in front of them all the time. I don't know if they have a situation where they can do that, but that would be ideal. And I would keep grass hay in front of this horse all the time if he has the teeth for it. And then I would begin to add some alfalfa hay in if he can tolerate it, because it has more protein and it has more calories.
While we're on the subject of the hay in front of them all the time, I just want to throw in some things here because my horse Cody is 29 and he is not underweight, but he's close. He's probably, he's a 4.
Okay.
He's not a 4.5 where I'd like him to be on the body condition scale. And so with him, he's a hay waster. And so if we throw 5 flakes into his stall, he'll eat 1 and then just pee on the rest.
Yeah.
And so what we do instead is we give him 1 flake at a time in a small whole hay net so that he's eating it, has access to it, and doesn't have the ability to just trash it all over the floor of the stall. And you get more out of what you give him.
The interesting thing with putting the hay in the hay net is you think it would slow them down, and it does, but that phenomenon makes the thin horses gain weight and the thick horses lose weight.
Interesting.
It brings everybody back to normal. So that was a really good suggestion. If his teeth aren't that great, there's always the option of chopped hay cubes, which you probably want to soak, hay pellets. So still getting that long stem forage in there. He might be a horse that needs to transition to a complete feed, which is the hay and grain in the bag. And read the label on these, because you don't feed small amounts, like 3 to 5 pounds of a regular fortified grain. You might need to feed 15, 18, 20 pounds of it, of course spread out over the day. Then you can add in other, I guess I would call them supplements, or other things to help hard keepers or senior horses add weight. My favorite, of course, is beet pulp. You knew I was going to say that. I like this because it is between the nutrition of hay and grain, and it's a fermentable fiber, which the horse's hindgut excels at, and they get energy from that, and then calories. So a lot of horses that are underweight gain weight with the addition of beet pulp. There's rice bran if you want to add fat. So moving to a new section. There's one way to add fat. You can just add straight fat too, and now it comes in a solid, so it's not as frustrating as oil, because oil gets thick in the winter and hard to pour, and then it can go bad. In the summer it gets hot and goes rancid, and it doesn't taste good, and it's not great. So,
and depending what type of oil you pick, it can also have downsides.
Well, it could be very high in omega, like corn oil is very high. The ratio of omega-3s to omega-6 it's inverted, so you're just adding inflammation to your horse, and probably doesn't need that.
Not something a senior needs, for sure.
Definitely not. So I like the powdered fat. I think that older horses become less efficient as they age. The digestive system is one of the organs that becomes less efficient, and so some digestive support, like probiotics, prebiotics, yeast, very good, enzymes, can help them, as I said earlier, extract the nutrition that you're already giving them, but they're just not getting. And then, I like that he gets turnout. You probably don't have a grass, which is why they don't put him on it, but boy, pasture adds just bloom to horses, and if there's any way you can get him outside for turnout, that would be ideal. I can't tell from hearing this if he gets outside for just some fresh air. And
he gets hand walked around the property, they said.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good opportunity for some grazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But everything, reduce the stress in his life. Look at all aspects of the environment. The vet's great to walk around with you, look at the food quality and quantity, look at the grass, look at the property, look for stress. So is he having to fight off other horses for his fair share? Sometimes that gets overlooked. Does he have a buddy that he's friends with? Because as a horse being isolated makes you nervous. So I think there's some
people too.
Yeah, everybody. I think there's some things that need looked at that's not in this question, and then there's some opportunities to add some nutrition to this horse that can make him enjoy his golden years.
That's right. All right, well, I hope that some of those solutions work out for you, and that you guys have many more years ahead of you.
Yeah.
He sounds like a wonderful horse. So thank you guys, as always, for submitting all your great questions. You can submit questions now for the October episode with Dan, who will be sitting right here where I am. And you can submit those on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, blog.smartpak.com, or smartpak.com/askthevetquestions. And wherever you're submitting your questions, don't forget to use #AskTheVetVideo so that we can make sure we can keep track of all those questions, pull them all together for voting. Anything received before Friday, August 31st will be eligible for the next episode, so keep that date in mind. And then, of course, you can vote on Twitter, our blog, and on YouTube. And you should always subscribe so that you know when the next video is coming out, you know when the voting's happening.
Don't want to miss it.
That's the best way to stay up on all the alerts. And of course, if your question was answered in this or one of our previous videos, you can email CustomerCare@SmartPak.com, and we will get you your gift card so that you can spend it on things like fleece halters or muscle supplements or all sorts of other things we have for you. Thanks for asking, thanks for watching, and have a great ride.